it kind of takes us to where we were going to start, because last week we were going to talk about the light board. So we'll talk about that in a couple seconds. But last week, Kathy and I just wanted to kind of do a quick recap of last week, because we were talking about student feedback, recording feedback videos. And we got a little crunch for time at the end, but we did want to point out that in the course, there is this great page, and Kathy made some great recordings about how to make a talking head recording, which is just kind of basically your webcam only, a screencast with the webcam, which is kind of the combination of these two, just the talking head or just your screen together, and then recording screencast in Microsoft Stream. And I think, Kathy, this is such a great reference to fix the link, is that she has put on here, there are other free webcam recording tools there, and she has this great chart here that talks about the platform. Is it free? And some of these we call freemium services, where they're free for a little bit, like Microsoft Stream, which is free to us because we're UWM, but it's a 15-minute limit. Or some of them are free for a limit of how many you can do before you have to delete things and go back and things. Yes, Kathy Pinkowski is she is basically the rock star. And when I don't know things, my first place to turn is Kathy. Then maybe I'll call Canvas, because they don't know as much about it's Kathy anyway. So,
but if you ever need a chart, call me, because you know I'm
yes,
all about the charts.
You are, and that past of a technical writer definitely shines through with that stuff. So we just kind of want to point out here too, because as we walk away from Active Teaching Labs, we want to make sure, because it's a intense hour of speaking with each other, but sometimes we walk away and we're like, what did we talk about? Where can I find those things? And we just wanted to point out that it is in the Active Teaching Lab course, and that it was under last week's recording feedback videos. All right. So actually it wasn't last time, because last week we did new Active Teaching Lab because Lane was on the start of the illness or whatever was going on at home. And coming soon will be the discussion about the light board. And the light board that was purchased, and it's on UWM campus. We don't want to talk too much about it. It's really Lane was the leader on this project, so we don't want to take away a lot from it, and he has a lot more to add than. But it is, the next time Lane is being here, I think we will talk about light board and things like that. So I know it got shuffled into the background and things, but it's, I would say, what do you think, Kathy? Like 99% ready to roll, and we just gotta, fine tooth comb over the we have a Canvas course for that's not it. Yeah, Revolution Light board. So we've got a course in Canvas ready to go, which will have supporting materials and things like that. But
and we documented the heck out of it. Ed and I did.
Yeah, and with respect to
written, we've got it.
Written, video, all those things. So
checklist.
We like to do a lot of the work on the front side, so we have less to do on the back side, and it's less reactionary and things like that. Dream Team, Nightmare, one of the two.
One of the two. But we wanted to make sure that this is, and Lane has also made signs right in the room. We're trying to make it as self-serve as possible, because it is a small room and we don't want to have to putting people in close proximity.
Right. And we'll talk much more in detail when we do talk about it, but it's pretty self-service. You'll go down, get the key, which will be on the door like a realtor's thing. You hop on in there, do your recording, pop your USB in and out. It's actually not very complicated. So, but I feel like I'm headed down that stream in general. This week we wanted to talk about basically start the conversation about collaborating and talk about engaging students and collaborating together in a very different way, and basically collaborating in COVID and online courses, because this obviously brings us very unique challenges that we didn't have before, when we could put students in the same area in the same space, or you could get them together in groups to meet and say, wow, get your group together, go meet, work on your stuff, do your group presentation in front of the course. But some of last week's items and weeks before should feed into this, like how do we give feedback and the video feedback and recording video, things like that. There's definitely some unique challenges that being completely online gives us in how we get students to collaborate in general. And wanted to talk a little bit about how to reshift our thinking about how we can still make collaboration and collaborative group projects in general work in the days of being online. So I'm going to hop in this Google Doc in honor of Lane, since he is the lover of Google Docs. And we have a chart that we just kind of want to get some ideas out, talk about this in general, but fill out things like types of, I'll make this a little larger, types of group projects did you do in face-to-face courses? What have you done in online? And where do you see challenges in working in online courses? And I'm always amazed by this group. Everybody's running at it. So what I'm going to do is give about 5 minutes here until things slow down. I'll be quiet and kind of group think this. All right, I think you guys have slowed, so this is good. Jackie, can you tell us a little, like, 60-second elevator speech on Perusall, if...
Sure. Sure. So it's Perusall's an external tool. It's free right now, and what you do is you load primary documents on there. I've used it primarily with graduate student courses, and you load them, and they can annotate, and there's shared discussion. And as an instructor, you can comment, you can upvote, you can star. Students can tag questions for ask. It is so intuitive, and I love, 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 love it. I have them do it before class, and then I'm able to pull those discussion questions into class. You can also import textbooks, and students can purchase textbooks directly through it and annotate within Perusall. So
Yeah.
great.
Awesome. So, yeah, and I asked if you were using, one of the reasons, to Ann's point too, Perusall is free. It is an external tool, which means as an external tool, it's not necessarily a UW approved. So it's not baked into Canvas at this time, and that process is difficult. Yeah, and Ann, to your point, asked about Perusall, no, because of FERPA, curious about Hypothesis pilot is going. I'm actually kind of curious about how the Hypothesis pilot is going too. And I mean, some of the challenges that students find working remote, I find working remote, because I don't necessarily have those quick casual conversations down the hall where Amy's office would be 10 steps from me, and I don't necessarily like drop in and say, hey, how's it going? How's this going? So, I mean, we have to be more direct in things.
So far, going well so far when I've talked to her, and I've been in, and in the test, like I've got the class. You want to kind of see it, but basically you enable Hypothesis and just add an external tool, and then you can do a URL, a file, etc. Just kind of the same thing, only we have a license for it.
We have a license for it. And Jackie, your point is you can't import a Canvas, but students consent by choosing to create their own accounts. So yeah, definitely. And I'm not the best rule follower, so I like to find things that I like to use too. And then sometimes I find myself, well, not sometimes, usually I find myself asking for forgiveness rather than permission sometimes. And depending on who's shaming me, I have to stop using it or not. But yeah, but in this day and age, Jackie, I find things too that like it works, and it works well, and I'm going to try and use it. And yeah, there is the pilot program for Hypothesis is going on, and maybe that's something we can look into. And I should circle around with Amy and see how that's going too. I'm going to write that on my list of things. I've got a license
that's pretty slick. You just add it as an external assignment. So it's kind of nice that you can grade in it, and that you're not having students sign up for something where the company could share their data
Right.
or have a security breach. Whereas anything with a license that has been licensed through UWM, they have to abide by FERPA, not sell data, things like that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure who put this on here, but the biggest challenge of our students unwilling to turn on cameras and often microphones. And I agree. And I'm not sure how we get beyond that. We've heard that from many people. I'm sure you have, Kathy, as well, about getting students to actually interact and turn on cameras. I had a casual conversation with a friend of mine this weekend whose son is at Paul, and he's actually failing a class because he won't participate in the class and turn on camera. And I was like, oh, he's just got to learn to play the game a little bit. So that is difficult. And I find, this is just my own personal comment, we seem to be more connected with as many ways as we can connect, but actually less connected at the same time. For I don't know where this anxiety came from of people turning on a camera and talking things. I guess since I've been teaching so long, it's just kind of old hat to do those things. But yeah, some of the other challenges that are there. Go ahead.
Into the gallery walk,
Please.
with presentations, it's pretty easy in discussions. If you do that voiceover PowerPoint, we're going to talk in a little bit about how to. Oh, sorry. How's it sounding now? Is this better?
Yeah, it's better, Connie. I mean, yeah, Kathy.
What?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So you can create I'm going to talk about it at the end of this, but you can create a collaborative PowerPoint, and everyone could put their own narration and upload it as a video to your discussion. And I've seen that work really well, where then people can comment on each other's. They can, you can actually assign peer reviewers. I wouldn't use that peer review function in a discussion because it gets to be a little house of mirrors.
Yeah.
But you could easily just at a document at the top saying Ed and Kathy are peer reviewers, or don't make us each other's reviewers. But you see what I'm saying.
Right.
So anyway, that is what's worked pretty well for us, is asynchronous. Oh, synchronous gallery walk. If you want everyone's pictures, if you want everyone's videos, Ed, wouldn't you say Teams?
Yes.
Yeah. Teams.
And of course, it's that's another. I mean, I'm laughing because it's the back and forth of Teams works really well for that, but the suggested tool for instruction is Collaborate, but Collaborate's awful because you can only see 4 people's video screens at the same time, and you really can't choose which 4. But
if anyone's interested in using Teams, though, I did a pretty long document about how to enable the large group setting in Teams, because you have to kind of do a couple things first to be able to have videos of, I can't remember how many, but it is a lot of people.
Is that the weird thing that makes everyone look like they're in the lecture hall?
Well, that is, you can opt for lecture hall. Don't do that. It's like the uncanny valley. But otherwise, it's pretty cool. You can get, I can't remember, but it's just a lot of people on the screen, which is helpful.
Yeah. And, to kind of head down the path of what we want to talk about, I think this is still hard to hear, Kathy. I don't know. I'm able to hear it.
Work on something.
Yeah.
So don't ask me any questions for a few minutes. I'll get a new
mic. which is okay, because in Collaborate, can students move freely between Collaborate groups? For instance, can they pre-establish 6 groups and then jump in and out? So yeah, Jackie, there's a setting in Collaborate Ultra where when you create groups, you can allow students to move from group to group, or you can make them stay in the groups that they're in. So, and that's a choice, Jackie, when you create items, when you create groups in the Collaborate Ultra. I believe the default is that cannot switch from group to group. So there's like a check mark that you need to say, okay, can jump from group to group. All right. Sonia said, I was told by my supervisors in my department that Teams should be used for our meetings, but not for activities related to students. Okay. Um, uh, yeah, and I believe the company line, the university line, I believe, is that Collaborate Ultra should be used for instruction. But there are some times where, the tool just doesn't fit the need. And if you need Teams because of the functionality, I would suggest using Teams. I guess part of the rub comes from when you do recordings, you have to put the recordings into Canvas. I would think that the overall stance, university instruction-wise, is that when using Collaborate Ultra, everything lives inside of Canvas. You don't have to look different places for it. Everything's inside. Everything's safe and secure. So, but there are times, Sonia, where if you need it, you need it. So, but to kind of head, yeah.
Hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. I just wanted to say, yeah, for instance, someone in English has a grad seminar where they really do need to see each other, and there are quite a few grad students, and good. Sorry about that. I'm not using my regular laptop. My regular laptop blew up the second time. So it's in the shop, and I'm trying to limp by with a very old personal one. But yeah, so somebody who had a grad seminar, I am having them use Teams, and that's somebody in the English department where they just absolutely need to see each other for some of the reasons in their synchronous discussions. So if anyone wants to use Teams, like I said, let me know, because I do have some documentation that I wrote on it.
Super. Yeah, and then I think this is one of those questions, or one of these questions or opportunities or problems. I mean, the platform to best share collaboration within Teams for shared presentations, one speaker at a time, is limited. And platform in which to share things, there's so many of them. And when you start to kind of go off the reservation, sometimes students can get lost. Even like, is it in my email? Is it in my is it in here? Is it in there? So what we kind of wanted to talk about today was, I gotta open another class real quick, was using the Canvas space for getting and engaging students and creating a collaborative space within Canvas, because they have to come to your Canvas class, or they probably should be coming to your Canvas class, or looking at your names. All of the people I've seen contact us for multiple things, which is great. We love that. So we know that you're fully bought into the Canvas environment, or at least you're drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. Post a link in the class. So we were going to talk about just basically different avenues within Canvas that you could use to create collaboration. And the one way, and we're going to kind of run through these fast because we've done trainings on them, but just kind of push everything together, and I don't want to take away a lot of Kathy's time and still have some discussion at the end. But one of the ways people really can leverage Canvas for collaborations is to create groups. And groups in Canvas, just as a quick aside, in case you don't know, you can create in groups. You go to the people, and then you would create groups, and you create a group set. And when you create a group set, the one caveat that we really think is important, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to start with my groups and call this, I'm going to call this discussion groups. Well, the problem is if you name things in your course discussion groups, and then I was to do that, and Kathy was to say discussion groups, and Sarah was to say discussion groups. When a student goes to their groups in Canvas, everything will say discussion groups. So if I click on the group set I'm in, if it just said discussion groups, I would get discussion group, discussion group, discussion group, and I as a student wouldn't know where it goes. So, and I don't know if sometimes it's hard to see the screens, we definitely recommend that when you name your discussion groups, you start with your course number first. Like, this is great, BioSci 100. So if you were to start to create a discussion group, let's just say this is like Math 105 discussion groups. You would name it with the course first, because when students go in, they get their discussion groups as a whole clumped together. It's not necessarily divided by the course. So let me see if I'm just going to fake these up. Discussions. So if I said Math 105 discussion groups, I can either allow students to self-sign up for the groups, right? Or I can have the computer sign up for these groups. I'll create them later. Or I could say, you know what, I'm going to split the course into how many groups. I'll split this into 12 different groups, and I can decide to split the groups with how many students, or I can simply allow the computer to do it, and I can require students to be in the same sections, or I'll create the groups later. So for this, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm just going to create these groups real fast, and I'm going to press save. And this is basically going to take this whole active teaching lab and split these into groups. So, and within those groups, then there are people. And the one thing is that we, and I know as teachers, we're over planners. And I usually, the one rub that comes with groups very early in the semester is people will be like, I have a discussion and so-and-so can't see the discussion because these people have added the course late. And if someone added the course late, they're going to be outside of these groups. So during the beginning of the semester, you got to kind of remember to go back to your groups often. And if there's someone not in a group, slide them in a group. And what's really nice is if people are in the wrong group, like Peter and Nora can't get along, I can move Nora to a different group and back and forth. The other thing about groups, and we'll kind of look at this again, is a lot, what we find a lot of difficulties with, or problems that come to us in support, is people will be like, oh, I have a new group, or they do one assignment and then they want to move people in the group, so they come here and just start moving people around because they want them in different groups. And really, if you're going to redo groups, issue with moving students is information. Do not move them. Absolutely, I'm going to make Sarah do active teaching lab next time. And you're right, that's exactly where I was going to go, Sarah, is that if you move groups, their information does not move with them. So if I wanted like this discussion group, and then I wanted to say, you know, Math 105 Project 1, I would need to create a whole new set of groups because the information does not follow them from one place to the other. And of course, Canvas is going to take a while. So if you need to, if you're going to say, hey, they're going to be in these groups for this discussion, these groups in a different discussion, you need to create those groups each time, not just go back and decide you're going to reshuffle those groups. All right. Another thing we want to talk about really quick is that when you create an assignment, which is, you know, and if we're going to create an assignment and call it a, you know, whatever group assignment we want, so we call it BTL, and I create this assignment, one thing that we find a lot of issues with in creating the group assignment is that, well, I guess people in general don't know how they work. So if it becomes a group assignment, it gives you these options. And either one of these options, whether you decide to click assign grades to each student individually, the one submission still goes in for every person. So help me, Kathy, if I'm not explaining this right. So if this was a group assignment and I wanted to create this and assign it to these groups, right now if I set this up, the group assignment, if I'm in a group with 4 other people, if I submit, that file goes in. If someone else submits, that goes in. And what would happen is that grade goes to everyone. And we've had everyone in the group. We've had a lot of people that say, you know what, I clicked assign students grades to students individually, and that's fine. Then the one grade doesn't go to everybody. And the submissions or the comments can either be directed to the whole group or individuals when you mark it like this. But there's a lot of misunderstanding that because I've clicked assign grades to each student individually, that the files are separate for people. It's not that way at all. It's still assigned to everybody. You just are going to grade everyone individually.
Yeah, just one thing can I add on this, because I've seen some bad mistakes. Can you scroll up?
I can.
So if you are testing groups, just make sure that every now and then somebody clicks group assignment and just
there's just kind of one big group for the class that they forgot about and they were going to later create other groups. Don't do it because I've seen people forget. And if there's only one group, that means the first student who turns in work to you, that work file is distributed to the rest of the class. And there's no way going back from that.
Yeah. So just it's a great way, and it's a great collaboration tool, just kind of making sure you understand all the sets, the ways that things work. If checking this box does allow you to, if you don't check this box, every comment that you make in SpeedGrader will go back to everyone in the group. If you do check this box, it allows you to grade the students individually. And when you were to make a comment on this in SpeedGrader, now I've got my screen so I can't see anything. The one difference it does allow you to do is it does allow me to send the comment to this student only, or send the comment to the whole group. But with that means I have to grade each student individually. So just understanding the difference between those two. All right. Another, I think, and I usually hate the term thinking outside the box, because I like to think of it more like you live in this box and how can we make it work. And it's a little bit of jettison into what Kathy's going to talk about, is sometimes discussions can be used as a great way to create a collaborative space for your student. So maybe creating a discussion that's not graded, but just if they were working on a project, to create a discussion would be collaborative workspace, and make it a group discussion, assign it to the members, and then save it. So only those group members, this would be a place that they could post for each other back and forth and talk about what's going on with because if we go back to this here, I highlighted it. One of the big challenges is students having difficult time finding time to work together. And I do kind of like the idea someone put in here too, is like sometimes they give them class time to do this, but class time's limited, and the line between what's class time and home time and work time all gets off a little bit. Maybe giving them some place where they know they can add something here if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, or like on here too, I've got some grad classes too that, grad students sometimes wait till the last minute. I would argue with this sometimes and call it usually wait till the last minute. And they do like to work independently. So giving them a space to work together, and that's where if you created a discussion that was just basically a collaborative workspace where they could talk about their project or their work together. The one thing that people misunderstand sometimes about discussions is that if I'm in this group 3, I don't see what's in group 1 and don't see what's in group 2. You only see what's inside of your discussion. All right. And again, if like this, if you now have a discussion and you want to create a different group of discussion, collaborative workspace also helps you see who's participating in the work, if you can get them to use that space. Yes, all of these things are if you get them to do this, like if we can get them to turn on the mic, if they will check these things. Yeah. And group projects are hard for students, especially because there's always one group member that doesn't play along. So yeah, I agree with you, Sarah. Collaborative workspaces are awesome because you as an instructor can see who's participating and not participating. And that, Kathy, I think we're just going to have to send Sarah like a thank you note, because she kind of leads our transition from one place to the other. And I was going to hand things over to Kathy for her to talk about.
Actually,
she is a plant. I knew that
awesome
about her. So I'm going to hand this over to Kathy, because I'm going to stop sharing my screen and give some control over to Kathy, who's going to talk about collaborations within the. Oh yeah, we can buy chocolate, sure. I got. Buddy of mine's got a great chocolate place. Kathy's going to talk about the collaborative workspace within Canvas that I think is kind of, and I work in Canvas obviously a lot, it's still kind of fuzzy and what it can and cannot do. So Kathy, I'm actually going to be quiet, which is hard for me to do.
No problem. All right, so thanks for, can everyone see? I'm not putting my video on because I'm having bandwidth and many issues with this old laptop I'm using. Can everybody see I'm sharing?
I can see the screen, yeah.
Okay,
Active Teaching Lab, yeah.
All right, so there are two ways to use collaborative documents that aren't Google Docs, and that's what I'm talking about today is Office 365. So the first is just by creating a collaborative document right in Collaborations, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And the second is to create a collaborative document within a group. So the first thing I do if I am going to do collaborations, I'd go to Settings. I'd go to Navigation, and I'd pull a few things up like Office 365, collaborations, and that will give your students access. I've had people ask, and when you pull these to activate things, just make sure you scroll down and save. And feel free to jump in and open your mic if you have any questions. So we have these available now, but people have asked, well, why put Office 365 in that? The reason is sometimes people just want to check their Office 365. For instance, your own files, here's my files. So that's not collaborations, but just so you know, that's why I put this there for the students. It's just kind of an easier way for them to get to it. And then let's say I didn't want to go with a whole group. I just wanted a collaborative doc that people could use. I would click Collaborations and add a collaboration. Thinking. And you could decide if you'd be using Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but right now I'll just do PowerPoint and give it a description and then add the collaborators. So add a couple people in here. Don't add yourself, that gets strange. You're actually
yeah, it gets really funky if you add yourself.
Yes, because you're the teacher, you can see you can see all the collaborative documents. So even if a student, right now I'm creating the collaborative document, but even if a student independently creates a collaborative document over here and invites people, you as the teacher in the class would still be able to see it. But I could find other people. Let's see. Trying to see somebody who's here. Oh, I don't need to. I can. So we've got one person here, and I would scroll down to the bottom and click Save. So you don't have a whole group. It's just a collaborative document that if the student went into collaborations, they would see this document for anyone who has access, anyone who I said has access. I could see all of them. But if you just click on it, students might be prompted to log in. I already logged in, so anyone can, I shared this with Sarah McDonald earlier. So Sarah, sorry if you got an invitation without knowing. Now I would click in PowerPoint or Word, edit document, but this is really important. So if you don't remember anything else from today, remember this. When you click edit to make changes, you want to use edit, make quick changes right here using Word. If you start using the desktop app, the problem is the changes are no longer in real time. So this makes it act like a Google Doc. This ends up in kind of a collaboration disaster. So I really like to make that point with students that if, let's say, Sarah was typing in here in the browser, and you know it's in the browser because we've got this little tab. If Sarah was typing in here in the browser and I opened this in the desktop app, what would happen is my changes and her changes might conflict. And when I shut this and it pushes the changes, it could be a situation where some of my changes are lost or some of hers are. So I always tell people use this edit function to make sure that you're collaborating in real time. If you need more of the bigger functional tools like in desktop app or in PowerPoint, I would just tell your students to coordinate with each other, because I actually was working on a curriculum map with somebody in LNS, and she had opened in the desktop app, and yeah, our changes wouldn't sync. So just keep that in mind. Are there any questions on that? And then of course, you can annotate, give feedback to the group here if you wanted, but I also wanted to mention that you can create an assignment for that, and I'll show you this in a second. One other thing, so for PowerPoints, I really do, yes. I would set these up for students. That's a good question. I think that it's just any way to organize the files in the collaborations page.
I don't think
probably like alpha. That's so. If I do two, you know, so sometimes I've actually put numbers in front of things and then it organizes them. But I don't think there's any way to drag and drop. I believe you can.
analytics.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm talking about right within the.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was a question asked. Can you see or track the contributions by individual students? Well, you could on the document.
Yeah, on the document. Go ahead.
I don't think there's like I don't think there's a chart or a list to see like student A how many times they did this or student B how many times they did that.
Yeah, and I'll check just to make sure, just, you know, if you can see, like if they're doing a collaborative essay or something, does it indicate who did what? So I'll check that out. But a minute ago, I was saying there are sometimes reasons that students should not simply edit in the browser. So I've got a PowerPoint here. And what I would recommend is, you know, they can edit the presentation, edit in browser. So they can edit the presentation so they're making different slides. And that is perfectly fine. All of us could be making different slides at the same time and so on. The time that you are going to need them to open in desktop app is if you want them to put narration in later. So notice if I go to slideshow, there's no way to record. So if you are having students do asynchronous collaborative presentations where they are adding slides to a PowerPoint online, like 4 people, have them finish the text first, and then they need to coordinate with each other. You know, on Monday afternoon, I'm going to be doing my narration here. So I'd open it in the desktop app. Oh, it's already open. So when I'm opening this in the desktop app, not in the browser, notice now I have the option to record slideshow. So I would navigate to my slides that I was responsible for, or if I'm doing the whole thing, just record. So people can record their part of the speech on their slides, make sure it's saved and synced, and typically it will autosave. But again, this should be done, recordings should be done in PowerPoint proper, not PowerPoint, the browser version. And then finally, whoever's last could export this to video. So are there any, and which would be down here, and create a video. And they could upload the video to an assignment or a discussion. And so people would have time to watch videos. I've had people do that where they create slides collaboratively, like I talked about, and they add narration to each slide, put a video in the discussion, and then assign people to watch and give comments, create a rubric where they're actually giving them some feedback. And not only do I do that, I grade people on their peer review. So it's not just, that's a separate assignment, but I just wanted to mention that because otherwise I get a lot of, oh, great job, great job, great job, which is good, but you also want them to really analyze them and give constructive feedback as well. Are there any questions on this so far? Yes, Sarah.
So I have never yet been able to get collaborations to work for me. Every time I try to create a new collaboration, I get a message that says an unexpected error occurred. And
you invite it. Go ahead.
Great success. And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Okay, so it might be this. Because I did it wrong the first time too, and first 3 times I'm like, what? So I'm just going to do another Word doc or Word. I wouldn't. Collaborative Excel can be tricky, by the way. Even if you're doing it in the browser, you could overwrite each other's cells if you're working on them at the same time. Just wanted to mention that. I always say probably because you never know. But what I first did, where am I? It's not happening now, but what I did is I added myself as the collaborator in the last document, and it gave me this error right up here, said it won't work, etc. And the other thing is it's hard to test. I would ask your students to test it to make sure they can get in, because what you can't do is use the test student in collaborations. So anyway, I received the same error as you did by adding myself as a collaborator because I guess it was saying it was a given. So is that a possibility of what you did?
No.
No.
It isn't.
Okay, I can definitely work with you. And it's gotten better.
I'll keep working on it. You know, maybe I should contact those great people in Seattle. But thanks anyway.
Yeah, no problem.
But at least like that, it is working for some of you.
Yeah.
Is encouraging because I think it's a fantastic tool and I would love to use it, but I haven't yet been able to get it to work for me.
And it could be a browser issue, but yeah, we'd be happy to work with anybody who's having problems with this. But yeah. So this is just a way that you've got a collaborative document and you can list who is going to have access to that document. And then the students would come and the collaborations would be here. They could also get to the collaborative document in their file structure here. And you would be able to, you also would have a copy of the document. So you could, I like being able to track progress and see if people are doing anything yet. I also provide very small, like I do this iteratively. So no, I just don't want to give people enough rope to hang themselves with. So there are a lot of very small assignments that lead up to the presentation. So no one can wait till the last minute to throw things in because that never works out. So I'm going to show you now how to do this in groups, almost the same thing here. As a teacher, I'm going to people, and let's say I'm going to discussion here. And you're going to want to get into the group this way. So you'll find the group, visit homepage, And again, the group could do this themselves, but I'm just showing you how you could do it. And notice, if you haven't used groups, this really confused me at first. Each group has almost like a mini Canvas collaborative space all to themselves. And then to get back to the home screen, you could go up here. Anyway, you'd choose collaborations. If they already had something, it would be here. Otherwise, you'd create collaboration in the same way by adding everybody. Actually, I think this is where I added myself, so anyway, add people, and then it will show up on this page, and it's part of the group. And the last thing I just want to mention here, and you could switch groups doing this, but I'm going to go to the home page, and I mean it. So you have to click it twice. I just wanted to show you in assignments that I just created a file upload assignment, which just so we're on the same page with what the settings look like. Just simple file uploads. I'm going to go back in as the test student and show you that they could even turn in anything within Office 365. So I'm a test student, I'm clicking submit, and this is just a file submission. But you'll notice that a member of the group or the whole group, whatever, could click login. Now I can't click login because, again, the test student doesn't have its own account. But if you click login as a student, everything in your OneDrive would appear and you could just select. And that could be used as an assignment submission. So they wouldn't even have to download and upload if they didn't want to. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing unless anyone has any other questions. Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Your timing's impeccable. We've got about 4 minutes left to, as always, as expected. So we've got about 4 minutes left to go. And there's I should not just start talking about things that I'm not showing as well. In the active teaching lab course in Canvas, we have also left resources here for you as well. So talking about how to create groups in Canvas, groups assignments, group discussions. There's a pretty good, this is the Canvas video itself, the instructor overview on collaborations, and also the instructor guide for collaborations and the student guide for collaborations as well. So as you walk away from today, you have a resource to look back at, as well as this recording will be posted in that Canvas course, and eventually when we get this collaborative handout over into Lane's ownership, that will be posted in the Canvas workshop as the Canvas space for active teaching lab as well. I just realized that my camera is off as well, so now it doesn't want to turn on. So again, we thank you for coming, and we can stick around and chat some more. Does anyone have questions that they want to ask before we hop out of this space? To be respectful, how can students ensure that speaking portion of their PowerPoint presentation is continuous rather than pausing with each slide?
Hold on 1 second. What was that?
It's in the chat. Sonia's asking, how can students ensure that the speaking portion of their PowerPoint presentation is continuous rather than pausing with each slide?
If you're the only person doing that, it wouldn't pause with each slide. You would still go to the record slideshow, record from beginning is what you do, and you would just cruise through it that way, so it wouldn't be pauses. The nice thing though is if you have a problem with recording on one slide, then you can always replace it, which I love. There are a number of other video recorders that you could use to record PowerPoint presentations, and Ed showed you the link to my recording resources from last week, and you could use any of those as well.
Yeah, instructor feedback videos. Yeah, they can all be used to record, not just
students too,
instructor feedback. They can be, they're tools that can be used by students as well. Excellent point, Kathy, as always. You're welcome, Sonia. So enjoy your day. We'll hang out just a little bit. Thanks
everybody.
Have a wonderful day, and try and get home before it's dark, which means you'll need to leave work by 3 o'clock today or something. Or everyone's probably at home anyway. So
Noon, just to be sure.
Noon, just to be sure. You're an hour late for leaving already. So
yeah.
Have a wonderful day. Look for an email for next week's Active Teaching Lab, whatever that subject may be.